everyone, and welcome back to Conscious Awakening with Sheila Seppi. I am so excited today. We have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world that I'm going to be interviewing and sharing her with you. And she is my spiritual teacher. She has been for, let's just date this here, like 23 years.
Yes.
And the reality of it is, she's just a beautiful, blessed soul that I could not think of anyone that I would rather interview for this series on walking the path of the wise woman than my teacher, Jeremy Lecron. Now, I'm going to have Jeremy to tell you guys a little bit about herself before she really, before we get into our little conversation here. But I do want to let you know that Jeremy, her biological heritage is Hopi from the Third Mesa Oribe, and she has been teaching women's circles for more than 35 years. I think right now, she told me, so she said, she goes, I'm going to retire. And then I was talking to her. She's like, oh, no, I'm never going to retire. I've got 10 circles. I'm doing 5 ceremonies a year. But prior to doing all of this wonderful work for humanity, Jeremy was also a psychologist, union psychologist, and she had her own practice. She's PhD. And I want to go ahead and bring Jeremy up for you guys to meet right now because she's one of my most favorite people in the entire world. So Jeremy, welcome.
Oh, Sheila, it's really good as always to see you, and thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this with you. I love the idea, I love the concept, and I'm just very grateful for the opportunity. Thank you, dear.
Oh, thank you for being here. And could you tell people just a little bit more about yourself
Sure.
in your retirement? Your so-called retirement?
Yeah, I'm not really sure that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I had my 79th birthday about a month ago, which means that I am in my 80th year. And I guess that doesn't surprise anybody more than me. Uh, I am 1/4 Hopi, and my grandmother was my first teacher, and she taught me, and I went to the Mesa with her, participated in the ceremonies, learned until she passed away. And at that time, her half sister, my aunt, continued with my education. And then, as usual, you go to college and you kind of find other things that are more interesting, like boys and, that kind of good stuff. And got married, had children, and eventually just kind of circled back. I was very, very lucky to be able to have my education completed. By the time I was 34, which is amazing, but I was one of those people that just barreled through. And I have always worked with people, first in practice as a Jungian therapist. And then as I retired from that, I truly had what can only be called a medicine dream, and woke up in the middle of the night to the image of my grandmother standing at the foot of my bed with her arms crossed like this. And she said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing? This is not what you are supposed to be doing." I think this was about 40 years ago. Just really surprised me. And she said, "You need to go home. You need to go home and remember, and you need to teach that which you know, and you need to go and you need to teach the people." So at that point in time, I kind of stumbled back to Hopi, and I was very lucky to meet my beloved teacher who passed away in 1999. His name was Chief Dan Evema. And he is the one who said to me, "You must go and teach them because you speak their language." And he didn't necessarily mean I spoke English. He meant that I understood the culture of the dominant culture, the Anglo culture. And so I embarked on this journey. And, I have to say that I think I'm the one that really created the concept of women's circles.
I think you are.
Well, other people, wrote a lot of books and did a lot of things around that, and I'm incredibly grateful. But I was probably doing this work 5 to 10 years before they were.
Yeah.
And the tradition is that women have a great power when they sit together. And in a circle, no one is greater than anyone else. There's no one standing on a podium in front of an audience. Everyone in a circle is equal. And when women come together in a circle, there's sort of this explosion of vibration that goes into the center and then kind of goes up and sprinkles down like glitter all around the outside of the circle. Women have been sitting together, standing together, talking together for centuries. And I believe we have kind of forgotten how. And that is why I took on this mission of sitting in a circle. You were one of maybe my first participants in Kentucky when I moved there. And it was such a surprise in such a, what would you call it? A kind of a conservative, old-fashioned community. Here comes this weird woman in with this concept of circles. And yet we filled that circle so fast. And we all had a wonderful opportunity to learn together. And there's a strength that comes, Sheila, from sitting in a circle. So I don't know what else I can say to you. Do you have anything that you remember that I have forgotten?
Well, oh my gosh. Well, of course, I came to you by way of the telephone directory, because at that time I had experienced an explosion in consciousness and didn't understand what was going on, called a walk-in experience. And my entire life changed, everything around me changed, and I did not navigate what was happening. And so I literally thought I was having a psychotic break, and I sought out counseling. And I had just moved to this new community, was looking through the back of the phone directory primarily just to figure out what services were available, because I was a single mom, 3 kids. And I saw Jeremy's ad, and it was almost like it just lit up. And it was talking about spiritual counseling. Well, that felt really good to me, the spirituality aspect, because I had a religious, not a spiritual, but a religious background. So that felt good. And then, of course, the psychology, my background being in psychology, that felt really good. So I picked up the phone, and I don't remember exactly what I said other than, I think I'm going crazy.
That was the first thing. Actually, I do remember that was the first thing that you said. I believe I said, hello, this is Jeremy. And you said, I think I'm going crazy. And I think my response was, you have called the right person.
So, so I had my first session with Jeremy. And by the time I got to the car, I knew I needed the second session. And it was during those first few sessions that the concept of walk-ins was introduced. And yet again, there was this explosion of information coming my way that I wasn't ready to handle. And quite honestly, I was a little ticked off. I'm like, I just want a prescription, because at that time I had been a very sick person. I was in Western medicine, and I thought that was the cure for me. And little did I know how my path would begin to unfold from that point on. And really, in that first circle, one of the things that Jeremy was teaching us was the basics, just the basics of, and really it was the basics of shamanism, learning how to connect with your spirit guides. Hi, Willow, everyone. This is Willow. He's up from his little nap. Should be the Shiloh and Sheila and Willa show here. But anyway, we learned to connect with our spirit guides. We learned how to work with the directional energies. We learned how to work with the magic of the medicine wheel. We learned how to, really do the shamanic journeys, which is what truly saved my life also,
Right. Yeah.
because it was in the lower world when I would travel and connect in with my guides, and they would begin to give me teachings that I didn't even understand, nor did I understand half the things Jeremy was telling me, but they were all going into my subconscious mind, and
Mhm.
they were just waiting. And so when I came in as a walk-in, I brought in a variety of universal truths. And because I had a very closed little box that I operated in,
Right.
and part of that, I had no metaphysical background whatsoever, none. And so the concepts of being clairvoyant were totally new to me. And when I came in, all of those skills had opened wide up. And
Mhm.
so I was hearing things, I was seeing things. Now, of course, that's integrated. It's just part of who I am. It's not that big a deal to me anymore. But back then, when you go from 0 to 1,000, there's a little change in the way things are. And Jeremy really helped me to understand that these were actually innate gifts that we all possess, and that because of the energetic frequencies that had entered my body, they were activated to such a degree that it felt like that they were totally consuming me. And so between Jeremy's constantly saying, just breathe, honey, just breathe, it's going to be okay, and working with my guides and remembering those universal truths, which now finally 23 years later I'm beginning to articulate it, because I have the it's not so much the languaging, but all of the walk-in had totally integrated, many years ago. But that really anchored in that exponential opening that allowed me to understand what was going on. And in the meantime, there was Jeremy there very patiently, but sometimes dragging me by the hair of my head down my path. Just breathe. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
I think the other thing that I said is just breathe and don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, I'm sure that came in a lot.
Just breathe. Don't do anything stupid. It'll be okay.
Yep,
It'll be okay.
yep.
Yeah, you were such a classic example of someone having a walk-in experience. And of course, now we know so much more about that. Now it is something that is very much accepted and very
Yes.
much understood. And I kind of think what happened with Sheila is absolutely something that also happened with me. I know that I had a walk-in experience when I was very young, and we've talked about that before on Sheila's site. But you get downloaded with this wisdom.
Mhm.
You are just barraged with information. And even though you can articulate it, you don't understand it.
Mhm.
And so I think that people who do have a walk-in experience, they will almost always be able to seek out a teacher who can explain it to them.
Right.
And now more than ever, now with your work being accessible, people are really beginning to understand. But I remember so well with you and with others that I have worked with over the years, that moment of this just explosion of memory, of consciousness, of you're just all of the sudden nothing is the same. You never will see anything the same way. And it really does feel like you are having what traditional therapists would call a psychotic break.
Oh,
And I think that
absolutely.
there are many people, many people. I need to be really careful here because I don't want everybody in the world to call me. But a lot of people who believe they have had a psychotic break are really, in fact, having a spiritual experience.
Right.
And they truly don't know what is going on.
Right.
So
That's
anyway,
that is one of the true blessings that I believe Spirit brought to me early, was to be able to have a teacher, to be able to have a community in which to
Yes,
nurture and
yes.
to foster, and really to be able to anchor in that energy. A lot of people don't have that. And my way of trying to do community circles, which I really want you to talk about your website because it's
Thank
phenomenal.
you.
Everybody, you do need to sign up for the website. You may not need to call her, but sign up for the
Don't call
website.
me, sign up.
Yes, that's right. No calls, sign up. But
Too
one of the
busy.
things I did was started it was at the time it was called the Wish Alliance, which stood for Walk-ins,
Yeah,
Indigos, Starseeds, and Hybrids. And it
yeah.
was so funny. We would have all these other individuals having these different kinds of experiences, and they're like, "Well, but wait a minute, I'm a contactee and I had a spiritual awakening. Wait a minute, I had an angelic viewing and I've had a spiritual awakening. Wait a minute, I've had these dimensional beings, these ultra beings, all of these different light beings showing up. Is this okay for me to come?" And so we very quickly, we just this last year, because we were just a little over a year old, but we just have changed our name to the Galactic Alliance. So let me plug that, galacticalliance.org, check it out. And we have Zoom meetings every Monday and every Thursday night, which are free to the public, and bring in all types of speakers on all kinds of subjects so that we can provide a container for people to grow. And then one of the things, of course, with my guides is they're always, I told them, I said, okay, I've done this conscious awakening network. I've done this, I've done that. I'm working on this book. I'm doing this, yada, yada. When I'm finished, I'm taking a little break. And they're like, what? You think you're here on
No.
vacation? And I'm like, and it was so audible. It's like, I got to remember to tell Jeremy, but
And
it
that,
was so audible.
that is exactly, I think, what has happened to me in this past year. I moved from Kentucky in order to be closer to my family and to really settle into what I thought were my retirement years. And Spirit said, what do you think? Are you just having a vacation? Does that sound familiar, Sheila?
Wow, yes, it
And
does.
I just I just kind of got told, no, you're not done. And part part of what is happening, and I'm kind of redirecting here a little bit, but I do want to talk about this, is that there is something that the Hopi people teach, and I sincerely believe in, that has to do with the evolution of the worlds, or the evolution of life on this earth as we know it. And in their tradition, they believe that we've had a first world, a second world, a third world, and then we are currently in a fourth world. And we are moving, we are taking the first fierce steps into a new fifth world. And everybody says, well, what is that? Is it this big, wonderful, mystical plane? Well, no, it is just that the energy is moving up.
Right.
And so many people are being awakened now. There's just this explosion of consciousness awakening. So Spirit said to me, no, you're not through. You need to continue. About 4 years ago, I with my partner, who does all of the back end work, because I don't know anything at all about computers and technology. Her name is Barbara Lee. Thank you so much, God, for putting her into my life. We created a website called Hopi Wisdom Teachings. And that kind of touches on to, I think, why I'm here.
Yes.
The indigenous people have a sort of wisdom that we, because of our technology, and maybe just because of the pace of life that we have kind of forgotten. And I felt like I wanted very much, because my circles are completely based on sharing this teaching, because that seems to be in the memory of so many people that are having these awakenings. Part of the reason why they feel so strange is that all of a sudden, even though they love technology and they use it, they're getting all these memories of being in relationship with a tree, or being in relationship with spirit guardians, spirit animals. Sheila, you're smiling. And having all of this awareness come into them. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't learn anything about this in school. I'm not going to go out there and talk to that tree. People will think I'm crazy. Oh, yes, they will. But it's a really good kind of crazy. So I began putting together these teachings really about 35 years ago, and have continued to create them and create the circles. And now we have this website where we are doing very much the same thing Sheila is, and we're trying to develop a worldwide community and give them the information that might help them understand why they are having these feelings. We all have an indigenous mind, Sheila.
Oh, yes.
All of us came from an indigenous culture, whether it is Celtic or Native American or Australian Aboriginal or African Aboriginal. We all came from an indigenous mind. It's inside of us. And part of the conscious awakening that is happening is a memory of being really close to the earth and understanding the cycles and the seasons and the sunrise and the sunset in a different way. It's a passion. So that is the main reason why I'm doing this work. And the secondary reason, and I think that this is why Sheila really invited me to be on this blog. I guess you call, what are we doing here? Consciousness Awakening presents blogs. Is that right?
Well, this particular series will be on the Conscious Awakening Network that I've started, but we'll talk about all of that. It'll also be on podcast, etc.
Right. Okay. So perhaps the main way that our indigenous ancestors taught both children and young adults is through the story, through storytelling. And from the time that I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was trained in the tradition of the indigenous people in storytelling, and not just how to tell a story, but then kind of how to explain the story or to ask the right questions. It is incredible to me how much information is bestowed upon someone through a story. It just kind of unlocks these memories, this awareness that people have in a completely different way. I always say with regards to spirituality, you can't read yourself smart. It truly is an experiential awakening. You must experience something. And many people have a tremendous awakening of both knowledge and awareness of themselves through the telling of a story. So I will be participating in this work with Sheila and sharing my stories with your audience in hopes that they will kind of fall in love with and remember the oral tradition and really understand, have an awakening of their own through the stories, honey.
Beautiful. So do you have a story to share?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, this story in a way touches upon something that you said, and I can't really gather that exactly back, but you were talking about people having a memory of gifts that they had that they didn't even know that they had. Well, in our tradition, in the indigenous tradition, that is called original medicine. Everybody has something very special. It is the gift that they bring to life, and it is something only they can do. So this is a story about original medicine. An awful lot of our original medicine comes through our ancestry and through the teachings we receive from our parents. So I will tell a little story and then I will explain this. Now, first of all, I need to share that the indigenous people look at nature as teacher. They didn't read books because they didn't have them. They didn't have all of these wonderful consciousness training manuals that we have. What they had was what it was right in front of them, nature. And so most of their wisdom and tremendous amount of things that I teach have to do with nature. So this story is a story about a spider. A long time ago, well, maybe not so very long ago, there was a beautiful baby girl spider born into the web of a very wonderful, wise woman spider. And this baby girl spider learned how to weave a web and how to capture those things that would nourish not only her, but her family. And she learned how to weave the most beautiful silken webs. And she worked with her mother. And they just created these beautiful glittering webs that wove all the way through the forest. And one day, this little girl spider was sitting at the bottom of her web, and a drop of dew fell down through and stuck right on the strand of the web in front of her. And the little girl spider looked into that drop and saw herself for the first time. And she said, I am so ugly. Look at me. I have this big, fat, round body. Nobody would ever like me. And then I have these spindly, ugly, long legs. I mean, no amount of leggings would ever look good. I'd have to buy 8-legged leggings, and I don't think they even sell them. Oh my goodness. I hate my life. I really hate my life. I hate being, I don't want to be a spider. I'm just so embarrassed. I've got to stop this right now. I have got to go and find something else to do and something else to be. And so the little girl spider dropped off the bottom of the web, and her mother scurried across the web and said to her daughter, don't leave, don't leave. You are beautiful in the way of spiders. And the little girl spider said, I hate being a spider. I don't want to feel like this, and I'm not staying. I've got to go find myself and create a better life. And so the wise, wise mother spider said, all right, daughter, it's time for me to let you go. But know that you can always come back if you wish to. Well, the little girl spider left, probably carrying a knapsack over her back, ran away. She went out into the forest, and she experienced some wonderful things. She learned how to climb trees, and that kind of really didn't do it for her because she kind of fell out of a tree one time. And she learned how to dig underneath rocks and make herself a home. That didn't really do it for her either. And she just, every time one of those big people with the big feet saw her, they would try to stomp on her. So she was constantly in fear because she was constantly on the ground, whereas before she was always in her web. And finally, one day, she made it to a sort of a special place, a really pretty grove of trees. And she looked around and she saw something about this is really familiar, but I don't know what it is. And then she looked over, and there, hanging between two trees, was a spider web. She looked at that, and it kind of, evoked a memory in her. And inside that web, there was the most gorgeous, male spider on Earth. This was a hunk of spider, beautiful thing. And this male spider spied her in the grove, and he came, you know, down the spider web, and he came across the grove to her, and he said, "My darling, you are the most beautiful spider I have ever seen in my life. Well, you have this gorgeous, luscious, round body. And look at those beautiful long legs. I have never seen legs like those. My darling, weave a web for us, and we will live together very happily. Weave a web that connects right up to mine, and we will weave a web all the way around this grove, and we will call it home, and we will raise our children here." The little girl spider looked at him and said, "A web? I don't know how to weave a web. I don't remember. I don't remember how to weave a web." And the young male spider looked at her and he said, "That's so strange. Surely you know how to weave a web." She said, "No, I have forgotten." And the young male spider looked at her and he said, "Come back when you can remember." And the little girl spider left the grove, hoping to find her way back to her mother and remember how to weave a web. Oh.
Beautiful.
So this is a story about how we come in to the right place at the right time in order to have the gifts that we own given to us, and how we, whether consciously or unconsciously, deny them. Compare ourselves to others that maybe don't have the same gifts, and we forget our original medicine. The little girl spider's original medicine was to weave a web, a beautiful glittering web. But that was not enough. And so she ran away, only to remember in the last possible, strangest way that she was truly a spider, and she needed to remember how to weave a web.
Beautiful. And so Jeremy tells these types of stories, and hopefully we'll be telling a lot more here. But
Well,
she also has these types of teachings on her website. So can you please tell people where they'll be able to find you?
oh yes, thank you so much. It is www.hopiwisdomteachings.com. And we would love to have you. We have, there are probably 30 to 50 free teachings on the website, and there's a lot of information about me and the other people in the community. And we also have a Facebook that we would really love to have people join into. And that is probably the easiest way to find me. So Sheila, thank you, honey, for that.
Of course. And that's hopiwisdomteachings.com. And just look for Hopi Wisdom Teachings on Facebook. In addition to just having my undivided love and attention and admiration and all these things, one of the reasons that I really wanted you to come forward is to share this original medicine with people, because one of the things as a society, we get so caught up in thinking we are the external. We think that we are those things that people tell us we are. We think that we are our jobs. We think that we are our bank accounts. We think that we are the egos, which, don't get me wrong, all of these things are definitely necessary and part
Yes.
of our human experience. However, the deeper aspects of all of this is remembering to drop within, sit in that stillness, and find who we truly are as spiritual beings. And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to start the Conscious Awakening series, and start off with the Walk of the Wise Woman, is to kind of set the pace, to help women, help men to remember who they truly are at the core of their being. And I could not think of anyone any better to help me do this than my teacher, Jeremy. And so, Jeremy, if you could talk just a little bit more about original medicine, and
Sure.
talk a little bit more about, right thinking, right relationship, being true to ourselves. So people can just get a taste of what you will find on Jeremy's website and hopefully here.
Thank you. That's so interesting. I think I will move to a teaching that I just gave yesterday to my Rainbow Medicine Circle, which you have taken from me, if you remember. And in this circle, I was teaching about destiny and callings. What is destiny? Well, destiny has to do with the gift or gifts that you came into this world with. And it is part of your destiny to use these gifts in service for society. And in order to understand your destiny, you have to understand what your original medicine is. And original medicine are those gifts that you had kind of automatically. Now, a lot of people having walk-in experiences, all of a sudden they will have this new gift. They will know how to do something that they have never known how to do before. For me, I'm really terrible at mathematics. I admit that. The only remedial class I had to take at the university was remedial math. And they let me in with the condition that I would take remedial math because I really didn't do very well in it in high school. But I'm very, very good at crafting things. I can knit and sew and cook and paint and do a lot of things that other people cannot do. My original medicine does not have anything to do with mathematics, and I have to realize that and understand that. But my original medicine has to do with creating objects that can be of service to people in another way. So original medicine is something everybody knows. And the first question that I ask people is, what did you love to do as a child? What did you love to do? And people will say things to me like, well, I really love to sing. And I said, okay, are you still singing? And they would say, no, I'm not singing. I'm a technician. I write programs for computers. I don't need to sing. And so then I remind them that destiny has to do with remembering your original medicine, because that has to do with your destiny in this life. How do we remember our destiny? We do that through callings. Life calls us, nature calls us. And the most wonderful calling of all is this thing called synchronicity. Synchronicity is God's way of being anonymous, right, Sheila?
That's right.
So how synchronicitous was it that I had written an ad in a Yellow Pages, because I had also just moved to this very small community. I don't advertise. I had never, ever done another ad. And after this first 6 months of this ad, I pulled it, never to do another ad again. And guess who found it? Sheila. synchronicity. So throughout the course of your life, you will have these callings, these kind of little strange things, maybe a signpost in the pathway. Someone will show up and they will say, boy, you really have a good ear for music. You will say, oh no, I can't sing because I just can't. I haven't sung since I was a child. Well, perhaps your original medicine is music. That is a part of your destiny. Maybe you are supposed to sing a song for just one person that will change their life. But if you don't remember, if you don't pay attention to the synchronicities that come into your life, the callings, the people along the way, the little signs, the things you loved. Is there a song that you love, you really love? Listen to the words of that song. Maybe those are calling to you. So calling leads you to your destiny, which helps you understand what I call your life mission. What is a life mission? Well, a lot of people kind of get into sort of big self-aggrandizement about that. You know, I'm going to be king, or I'm going to be president of the United States, or I'm going to be a millionaire. That's not your life mission. Your life mission is to be of service. What is the gift you will leave the children? What are you going to leave the 7 generations to come? There are things that I don't think you can do. There are things you need to do in order for the web of life to continue. And we find those things through callings, understanding our destiny, and piecing together what our original medicine is so that we can add that to the life mission of planet Earth. Oh, that makes sense?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, I've really honestly tried since I walked in to live my life with my original medicine. I work with my collective. My collective is me. I am my collective. We operate as one. And really learning how to say yes, because it's one of those things, you're going to do it the easy way, or you're going to do
We're
it
going to do it the hard way.
but you are going to do it. So I've
That's
learned
right.
to listen to those little callings. I've learned to listen to those little nudges, and not to deny it, because a lot of times what we find is the energy of self wants to do one thing,
Mhm.
but our original medicine needs to do another. And when
Right.
I came in as a walk-in, I had a very firm mission to be a way shower. And of course,
Yeah.
initially, here I am, single mom, raising 3 kids, going through this horrific divorce, yada, yada, yada. It was absolutely crazy years. And it was hard for me to focus on my original medicine. It was
Yeah.
hard for me to bring through those teachings that I needed to be able to bring through to unlock all of that universal knowledge that was just sitting there, pulsating, ready for me to go. But through these types of teachings, through working with Jeremy, I was able to do that. So again, I encourage everyone to please visit the Hopi Teachings website.com, because I am sure that you're going to find something there that will be a benefit to you, something that may touch you, something that you might can share. And who knows, it might just spark a spiritual awakening with you.
So that would be wonderful.
That
And
would be wonderful.
I would welcome anyone who would like to share in this wisdom and share in this journey. So
Yes.
thank you, Sheila, honey.
Thank you. And so you can see why I really wanted to have Jeremy as part of this Wisdom Women's teaching, walking the path of the wise woman. I think Jeremy truly embodies that. She has had a very full life. You know, she used to be this big, you know, PhD, doctorate psychologist, had her own practice. And I still remember some of the stories that you told.
Oh,
I
yes.
love the Superman story, but we're not going to go into that.
No, no,
No,
that
we're
is
not going
for
to
a
talk about
private,
that.
a private circle is really
Yes.
one of the funniest things that ever happened to me
Yeah.
in private
Yeah.
practice. Yeah,
Yeah. And, so Jeremy didn't come into this, but
no.
she listened to the calling of her heart. She came full circle. And if I remember Jeremy's walk in story, she was about 5 years old and
Yeah.
she just knew that her parents were hiding her Christmas presents in the loft of the barn. Now, Jeremy, being Jeremy, takes the ladder, pulls it over, climbs up, and falls straight back. And you want to share the rest of it? I know the story, but I want you to tell.
Okay. Well, as Sheila said, I knew my parents had hidden those Christmas presents. I knew it. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and boy, I'll tell you, Christmas was a haul in our house. You can only imagine that the entire living room was filled with presents, but nobody knew where they were hidden. So I was sure that it was in the barn. And we had a cement floor in the middle of the stalls. And so when I fell backwards, I hit the back of my head. And of course, by the time they got me to the hospital, I had a crushed skull. And I was literally pronounced dead in the emergency room. And of course, my mother had called my father, but it was hard for him to get there because his work was clear on the other side of town. But he drove and I was in the emergency room. Now, I'm told this, I have no memory of this as a child at all. And I am told that he came into the room or whatever, walled off space or whatever it was, and that I was on a gurney and that I had the sheet up to my head, and they just had left me there so that my father could come in and say goodbye. And of course, he was weeping, literally. I'm his oldest and his first child. And he says that I said, or somebody else said, he doesn't really quite remember, why are you weeping, sir? And he kind of stepped back. And when he looked down, he says, my eyes fluttered open and I wasn't dead. And it was one of those, now you've got to remember, this is probably 75 years ago, folks. And this type of thing just didn't happen. And nobody had an explanation for it. I think they said that maybe my breathing had gone so low that they couldn't find it or they couldn't get a heartbeat. But when they lifted me up, the back of my skull wasn't crushed anymore. And that they really couldn't explain. I don't have a whole lot of memory of that. But I think I knew something had happened, but I was just so young, I didn't understand it. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later that I did understand it through a book that I had read. Do you remember my talking to you about that, honey? Is it okay if I say it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Ruth Montgomery wrote a book probably in the 1950s called Strangers Among Us. Maybe it was the 1960s. Anyhow, I finally read that book and I went, I'm walking. And I got it. It just flooded into me. And I think that I knew part of my mission was to help people who had had the same experience, certainly not at the level that Sheila is able to. It was a different time. But I knew then what I had experienced, and it just flooded me. I knew what it was. And so I kind of made it. That is one of those callings, guys. That is one of those callings. I just happened to be very interested in spirituality, and she was writing a bunch of those kinds of books, and I read them. So you never stop learning, and you have opportunities throughout the course of your life to remember things and to finally have an explanation for them. So that is the story, dear.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And again, please visit Jeremy's website at thehopieteachings.com. You can also find her on Facebook at the Hopi Teachings. And so please sign up. Do yourself a favor and sign up. And so, Jeremy, thank you so much for being
Welcome,
with
honey.
us today and sharing your wisdom and your beautiful teachings. It is so good to be in your presence. You can just feel the love that you have for humanity and the connection that we have. Mwah. I love you dearly. And everyone, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for watching this. Do not forget to check us out on the Conscious Awakening Network.org. You can also find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, pretty much all the major podcasting platforms. And we do have our little handy dandy phone app. And so please check that out. We have the iOS phone app. We also have an Android phone app, and we have a website, consciousawakeningnetwork.org. Also, please visit the galacticalliance.org. If you are looking for community on Monday and Thursday nights, we have live programming. And if you can't catch it, you can catch us on the Conscious Awakening under the Cosmic Conversations. And so, Jeremy, I would like to ask, do you have any final comments that you would like to make before we officially close out?
I think that I would just like to say Asquali. That means thank you in Hopi. And I think everyone needs to know that we really are embarking on this new fifth world.
Yes.
And there is the way this is going to unfold is through our intentions and through our manifestation. Don't look outside yourself for the answer. You are the ones that we have been waiting for. Thank you very much.
Enough said. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a blessed week. Much love.